Okay, here's just a quick review of the things that we did the other day with regards to factoring. So what we'll do today is we're going to look at factoring trinomials where the number out front of the first term is a 1 and when it's not 1. Okay, so those are the two things. I guess in this Scribble class we're just looking at the first one. Okay, so last day we looked at something called a common factor, and we saw that a definition of factoring was to express something as a product of two or more other things. And one of the things that we found that you could do is look for a common factor. So we looked for something that would divide evenly into both this term and this term. And I think 2 and an x would be common to both of those. And then we took each of those terms inside and divided them by that common factor. Leaving us with, when I divide this I get 2x, when I divide this I get 3. So this would be the factored form of this initial polynomial. But the main thing is I'm looking for getting something times something else to give us the original one. Okay, so that's what we were looking at the other day. Now today we're going to step things up a little bit, and remember in the last unit we looked at foiling two binomials that look like this. So doing the x times x, x times 5, 3 times x, 3 times minus 5. And when you multiply those together, you come up with a trinomial. And all those trinomials, I guess not all, but lots looked exactly like this one. So x squared, x, and a number. And it turns out that sometimes this is the nice form, and that's useful for us. But sometimes we'd prefer to have it in this factored form, or expressed as a product of two factors. So what we want to be able to do today is to take an expression that looks like this one and make it back look like that one. So we're sort of going backwards to what we were doing before. And that process of going backwards, expressing as a product, of course, is known as factoring. So here's a trinomial. I was just looking at this one, and it's not too bad when I've got it multiplied out. You can sort of see what the factors were to begin with. But as soon as you go to a new question, this is a little bit tougher. So we need to find some way of factoring this. In the end, I want to have it look like this, with some stuff in the middle. Probably just in the form that you're looking at, you can see that this x squared comes from multiplying an x in both of those first slots. So really, to factor, I can put those two in there right away. But then it's just a matter of figuring out what I should put in those last two slots. Now the method we're showing right now is called the guess and check method. There are other methods for it as well. But basically what I'm looking for to get these two numbers in the end is I want to look for two numbers. So two numbers, and I want the product to be 36, and I want the sum to be 13. That's our key. Okay, so I'm looking for two numbers, and their product has to be 36, and the sum has to be 13. I always start just looking at 36 and say what multiplies to 36. There's a bunch of stuff. 6 times 6 would work, but then 6 plus 6, not 13. What else? 12 and 3, that multiplies to 36. 12 times 3, or 12 plus 3, that's not 15. How about 9? 9 times 4, that gives me 36. Oh, and 9 plus 4 gives me 13. So those are the two numbers that I want to look at. And notice that signs matter. So they need to multiply to a positive 36, add to a positive 13. These multiply to a positive 36, add to a positive 13. So what I can do is take these numbers and simply put them in here. A positive 9 and a positive 4 are the ones that I think that will work. Always at this point I would multiply and just check to see if I get this answer. So x times x, x squared. X times 4 plus 4x. 9 times x plus 9x. And 9 times 4, 36. Adding the middle two terms, I get 13x. That's what I had at the start. That means that this here is the answer to my question. Okay, let's try a bunch. I'll just go through a bunch of questions with you and we'll just sort of see how they go. Here's another one. Two things that multiply. Oh, just before we do that here, you need to make sure that things are in the right order too. So you have p squared, p, and a number. That's the right order. You don't want to mix these things around or our little trick over here doesn't work. So pairs of factors that multiply to 30 and they have to add to 11. Okay, 30. 3 times 10, add that, 13. No, it's not it. 5. 5 times 6. 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 plus 6 is 11. There I go right there. So I put my two brackets, so it's a product of two factors, a p in the first slot in each side, and then over here I have a positive 5 and a positive 6. That's factored. Again, good idea to check. I'm pretty confident that this one's right, but it's always good to check. Let's do some more. They talk a little bit about signs in the textbook, and they have a couple of tricks that show you how when one's minus, that both of these have to be the same, or if this one's positive, they both have to be the same, and in this case they both have to be minus. If it's positive and this one's positive, then they're both positive. There's some rules like that that you can try and remember, but for the most part, it's best just to try out the question on your own. So let's try one. Here's a couple with minuses in it. So I need to get two numbers that multiply to 15. Got to times to 15. Has to add to a minus 8. Okay, so if I'm multiplying 3 times 5, yeah, that's 15. But when you add those, that gives you a positive 8. So that's not right. So how am I going to get a positive? Oh, how about if I take minus 3 times a minus 5? If I multiply both those, that does give me a positive 15. And if I add those, it gives me a negative 8. So those would be the numbers that I want to use in my factors. So this would be x minus 3 and x minus 5. Well, so this is working not too bad. Maybe try this one and pause and then come back and see if you get it right. Okay, hopefully you've unpaused. Two things that multiply to 20, add to minus 9. 2 times 10. Or minus 2 times minus 10. But those don't add up right. 5 and 4. Minus 5 and a minus 4 have a product of a positive 20, and they also have a sum of a minus 9. Those are my two. So here I go. T minus 5, T minus 4. Done. You can FOIL that out. I'm pretty confident that's going to be right though. Okay, let's try some other ones. Here's another, here's a good one. Okay, another one. Notice I'm messing around with the minus signs a little bit on these ones. So I'm looking for two numbers whose product is negative 24. I have to times to get that, and I have to add to get a positive 10. Okay, 24. 12 and 2. Oh, it has to be minus 24. So maybe minus 2 and positive 12. That'll give me minus 24. If I add those two, that gives me 10. Hey, I get it right off. I could have used 6 and 4, 8 and 3, and some other numbers, but it's best to try and get, well, it's not best, but it's nice when you get the right numbers right off the bat. Okay, x minus 2, x plus 12. Again, check, good idea. You might want to pause and try these next two on your own, and then press play again when you're done and see if you get them right. Okay, this one, look, they're messing us up right away. They did put it in the wrong order. So I should rewrite this one in the proper order. Then I'm going to go over here. I'll just use this one here. I have to multiply to a negative 12, and I have to add to a negative 4. Okay, so multiply to negative 12. 6 and 2. negative though. Let's see, negative 2 and positive 6. Add those together, you get a positive 4. Oh, I got to get a negative 4. No. Well, I just have to switch though. Positive 2, negative 6. Multiply gives me a negative 12. Add gives me a negative 4. That's the one. So it's going to be y, and then a positive 2 and a negative 6. Okay, this one at the bottom here, it's in the right order. Oh, it's a t to the 4th thing. That'll mess this up a little bit, but probably if I'm following a pattern, this t to the 4th, I could probably just write a t squared and a t squared there. Then I'll factor or FOIL it out at the end and just make sure it comes out to that. But it sort of looks like the right form. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to a negative 14, add to a positive 5. Notice I'm careful with the negative signs. Okay, 7 and 2, so say positive 7 and a negative 2 gives me negative 14. Add them together, oh, right off the bat, positive 5. So I'd have a plus 7 and a minus 2. Again, you could FOIL that out, but I think you'll find that you'll get that answer there. So there's lots of other questions. Here's another one. You have to change the order. I would practice those. Two numbers that multiply to the last term and add to the middle term. Like this one here, again it's in the wrong order. Let me rewrite it. So t squared minus 10t minus 24. So now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to a negative 24 and they have to add to a negative 10. Add to a negative 10. And so I just start trying to find the numbers. Careful with this one. This is an interesting one. So multiply to negative 24, you could go like 6 and 4, right? And I know 6 plus 4 is 10, but in this case I have to get a negative 24. So one of these two has to be negative. So this one could be negative. Notice that now they don't add up to 10. So this one doesn't work. But if you went, say, with negative 12 and 2, those multiply to negative 24. They also add to a negative 10. So those would be the ones you'd use for that one. Okay, sometimes you get a question like this one where two numbers that multiply to 7, so 7 and 1, negative 7 and negative 1. But notice in neither of those cases do the numbers add up to the middle term. If that happens, at this point in our math career, we just say that this polynomial is prime, that it can't be factored. Later we'll see ways of taking that further, but for now we're just going to say, hey, you can't factor that. Next question. Okay, hopefully that gives you a little bit of help with that module. If you do have any other questions, feel free to give me a call.